All right, Colts Nation, back again with another video during this lull period that we're in, but no worries, before you know it, we'll be into training camp, into the preseason, right? We're going to be ready to rock before you know it. So you clicked, you're here, you saw the title, you already know what this episode is about, right? Today, we are talking about Shane Steichen, and what an amazing time right now it is to be a Colts fan. I mean, there is so much change, what feels like positive change, hope, right? So much we're going to be learning about this season. And while, of course, so much of this excitement has to do with the young quarterback, Anthony Richardson, which we just can't get enough of, we can't forget about our head coach now, right? Our brand new head coach. And I feel lately, Steichen has kind of been left alone in all of these Colts conversations, you know? Maybe since the week or two after he was hired. Maybe that's just a personal feel, but that's what it's felt like. And you know, I think it's time we really dive into what we can expect from this Colt offense this season. Obviously, Shane Steichen, we talk about the defense too, but when we're talking Shane Steichen, it's all about offense, right? He's that offensive brain. So let's get into it. But before we do, if you've never been here before, as I assume most haven't at this point, welcome to the Riding the Bench Coltscast. My name is Justin. I'm going to be recording every week, all the time, forever. So go ahead if you're liking what you're seeing so far, or you're just a Colts fan, shoot the video a like. And then, if you want to be around for the journey, you can subscribe as well. But most importantly, just enjoy the show. I'm just out here trying to get my reps, trying to get better. Now, I'm sure you've noticed by now on the other side of the screen, that's not Colts stuff behind that man, right? That's Eagles stuff. And how convenient. So this right here is a man that has watched every single Eagles game, I think, over the course of the past 2 years, and has seen Shane Steichen's offense in a way that we can't relate to, right? On a drive-to-drive level. So he's already learned lessons that we don't know. This is a man that's going to help us achieve the goal of today's episode, which is to better understand what we can expect from Shane Steichen in his first year in Indianapolis. I introduced to you the other half of Riding the Bench, host of the Riding the Bench Eagles cast, my brother. It has been a while since we have been on one of these together. This is very exciting. This is Asif Badi. Welcome, my brother. How you doing?
I am doing very well. I'm very excited for this one. It has been, guys, it has been such a long time since I've done a show with my boy, my brother from another mother, across the camera screen, man. It's been a long time. I'm super excited for this episode. I'm giddy, man. I'm feeling great. How you feeling, dog? You must be feeling good, like you said. You must be feeling good.
I'm feeling great, man. I bet for some people, maybe like 10 to 12 people watching this right now, this is probably like a blast from the past, right?
Oh, big time.
To us, this is like a momentous occasion. To the person on the other end, 90% of them, they're like,
what the hell is this guy?
They don't get it. They don't get it,
They don't know what the hell I am, and rightfully so. You're a Colts fan. I get it. But
they don't get it. If by the way, guys, if you're here for the Colts, if you enjoy what I'm doing, you have any interest in other teams at all, if you're liking what I'm doing, you're going to enjoy what Asif's doing over there on the Eagles cast. So, yeah, no, absolutely, dude. I enjoy the show. I listen to the show. To be honest with you, I'm not even an Eagles fan. Yeah, it is what it is. So
absolutely, man. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So I'm happy to find a way to get you onto the show today. And, what better way, right? And we know, right, what makes this channel so unique is how the Colts and the Eagles are intertwined. Now, of course, it's not like we became a Colts and an Eagle, right? This is like almost like it just happened. We met in 7th grade. I'm a Colts fan. You're an Eagles fan. And here we are today, same channel, making videos.
That's right.
It's an interesting thing, right? So the Eagles Colts very intertwined. I figured what a strategitic way to use a good friend of mine. When I put it like that, it actually comes off
Fair
a little underhanded, right? But I think we've done enough nonsense, right? So
all good.
Let's get into it. And I want to start Jonathan Taylor. Let's start there, right? So we have a guy in Jonathan Taylor, who obviously the 2021 MVP, Asif.
Indeed.
Coming off an injury-riddled season, right? And his workload in college is well documented. And the Eagles, in some senses, are kind of, at least for me, on the outside looking in, like the poster children for doing like running back by committee. I don't know if that goes back to Doug Peterson or what, but I kind of feel like that's what it is. And as I look at Jonathan Taylor and the workload and all this stuff, I wonder whether or not Colts fans can expect to see reduced usage out of Taylor this season. So that that perception I have. Number one, is that true? That the Eagles go run by committee? Shane Steichen was doing run by committee, running back by committee?
So for the most part, yes, to a degree. We all knew for last year anyway, the 2022-23 season, Miles Sanders was the guy. Like, he was the running back for the Eagles, with a mixture of Gainwell and Boston Scott against the New York Giants in particular. But again, the running back by committee deal is really more of a Nick Sirianni type of like philosophy. He did that with the Chargers, he did that with the Colts, and he's bringing that to Philadelphia. While Shane Steichen does running back by committee, it's really more like like 60-65% of the carries are going to the one guy, and then the other carries are going to get mixed between quarterback or running backs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like running back by committee, you're not going to see a true like, oh, Jonathan Taylor's going to get 15 carries one game, and Zach Moss is getting 10 carries this game. It's not going to be split like that. It's going to be within the flow of the game, but for the most part, you're not going to see Jonathan Taylor carry the ball 320 times on the year. Like, you're not going to see that type of workload for Jonathan Taylor. So
right. So I suppose my question comes down to more: should I expect it to look the same in terms of the usage, or would I expect to see more Zach? Because really, Zach Moss we wouldn't have seen as Colts fans for the most part, if not for what was going on with Jonathan Taylor. It would have been Jonathan Taylor and then maybe Deion Jackson, obviously, after we got rid of Hines or something like that. So can I expect to see Zach Moss on the field, though? Would you think, if you're taking a guess? I guess you don't know. I suppose I'm looking for an answer that isn't there.
Yeah, no, I mean, if I had to put my money on anybody, I think you're going to see a lot more of like Deion Jackson and Jonathan Taylor splits more than Zach Moss, depending on the situation, right? Like,
okay,
really for Philadelphia, a lot of our running game was based on what the quarterback can do as well, right? So it would be, we'd get into third and short, and all of a sudden it's a QB sneak with that great formation that we all love. And I'm saying that, facetiously, because I know nobody likes that formation except the Philadelphia Eagles, right? So, and maybe in that sense, if you get to third and short,
Colts fans like it now too.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to love it, right? In that sense, you may see Zach Moss come in, but I think you're going to need running backs who can catch and run between the tackles and bounce to the outside. Deion Jackson fits that mold for me more, as well as Jonathan Taylor more so than Zach Moss, even though Zach Moss isn't like a shit running back. He's just not as versatile as these two guys.
I suppose that is a good point. That is a good point that you bring up there too, mentioning that the backs in Philly, you didn't say this directly, but this is what I took as an implication, is that the backs in Philly, despite the fact that all of them were getting usage, all of them were kind of threats as a dual threat, right? You have Gainwell, you have Miles Sanders, you have Boston Scott. All these guys can kind of play both sides of the coin there.
Absolutely.
Zach Moss, maybe not as much that type of guy. So you briefly touched on this. I'm going to ask you to go a little bit deeper into it. We're looking at Shane Steichen and this running game. Obviously, the Colts, we love this offensive line. Some of us do. Some of the fans give the offensive line a hard time, but I mean, that's just people, right? So
fair enough.
The offensive line, Jonathan Taylor, this is what we know about the running game, but from your experience watching Shane Steichen, how do you feel like he likes to go about getting that run game going? Like, do you feel like there's any kind of go-to situations, or I don't even know the way to describe it, but
so I'll say this: Shane Steichen is not somebody who, like every coach in the NFL, he's going to have a first drive that's scripted to dictate the pace of the game. And he's going to try to pound the rock at first. And then really it kind of comes down to how well your quarterback makes decisions. Because in Philadelphia, a lot of our schemes are built off one another. So like we have one base play, and that can bring off like 5 or 6 other sister plays where you just alter one thing on the offensive line, alter one thing that a receiver does. It could be a slant. It could turn into a chair route. All of a sudden, it could be just a read option where, Miles Sanders crashes down and Jalen Hurts bounces to the outside. So it's all based on the same play. Shane Steichen is somebody who will find the weakness in the defense within the first few drives of the game, and he's going to keep drilling that weakness until that defense adjusts. So whether it's Jonathan Taylor going up the middle every single play, that's what he's going to do until that defense decides, hey, I got to put 8 in the box to stop this guy. And once he does that, then all of a sudden the offense opens up and you take the deep shots down the field. So I don't know if there's any sort of way Shane Steichen says, hey, this is how we're going to get our rhythm going. He picks up the rhythm based on what the defense will tell him to do. So like if you notice Philadelphia last year, there are some games where we were really pass happy. And I'm like, why are we not running the ball? And then there's some games where we're just pounding the rock down to people's throats, like that game against Sunday night in Green Bay, where we just decided, hey, quarterback runs all day because that's what they're giving us, right? So he picks on what the defense is going to give you, and that's what he's going to go with. So, again, it just depends on the flow of the game. And Shane Steichen's one of those play callers who's really good at picking up the flow of the game. So if he's the one who's going to be calling plays for you guys, whether it's him or Jim Bob Cooter, that's going to be what dictates your running game, in my opinion.
So then another question actually is Frank Reich, obviously another offensive guru from Philadelphia, right? Funny how that works. And Frank Reich really, for all the flack that he gets from Colts fans, really gave us a lot of very good stuff as a coach. For the most part, was relatively successful as the coach over here. And one problem he did have, despite the fact that there was days where he was on the money for sure, and I don't know if this is persistent amongst all coaches in the league that are these offensive minds, but I felt with Frank Reich, there were some days where I felt like, I don't know if it was just him individually, but we just lost our way in terms of we would abandon that running game, which in Indianapolis, with the way this team is set up, is completely unacceptable. Do you feel like there were any times off the top of your head that you can remember where there was a game where Shane Steichen had kind of done something similar or not at all?
If I had to choose one game in particular, that game against the New Orleans Saints, where Minshew got the start for us when like Jalen Hurts was hurt in that little period where he was out. That game did not flow as well as Philadelphia's offense usually flows. Now, granted, it's the New Orleans Saints defense and it's a really good defense, but just the play calling itself just seemed kind of off. And I think part of that is, and I'm sure you're going to want to get to this at some point, is, the relationship between him and Hurts is different between him and Minshew, right? It was a different dynamic there just because of their physical ability, right? And like I said earlier, the running game in Philadelphia and the way this offense flows is really predicated on decision-making by the QB and, quite frankly, Jalen Hurts' ability to get out of the pocket and actually create yardage with his legs. For what we love about Minshew, that's not his skill set. He's an anticipatory thrower. He's really good at intermediate routes, and he could throw the ball down the field at times, but he's not going to be someone who's going to be, shaking and baking somebody in the middle of the field like that, right?
Right.
In that sense, it was kind of tough because now all of a sudden we become a little isolated in terms of what we wanted to do within the flow of our offense. So in that sense, it could be a problem. It could be a problematic thing for you guys, but I don't anticipate that being an issue because one thing with Shane Steichen is if he messes up one week, he's going to come back the next week and adjust and make sure that doesn't happen again. And after that New Orleans Saints game, our offense did not look the same after that. So it's a quality trait that he has where he recognizes, hey, something's not right here, whether, he didn't pick up the flow of the game that day. Next time he's going to come back and say, okay, I know this ain't working. Let's do something else now.
Gotcha. Well, that's how he comes off. He comes off slick, man.
Absolutely.
He comes off very slick, man. When he's talking, dude. Very, very calm. Like never even like stutters or anything like that. Just one of these guys that's just very calm, collected, and is media trained for sure. That I can tell about. He ain't giving you nothing. He doesn't say nothing. He doesn't say nothing, but he's very endearing while he does it. So I want to move into that was a little bit about the running game. Now this part right here, maybe in hindsight, probably what I should have put at the beginning. I'm sure more people are interested in this, right? But
it's all right.
Right, but you live and you learn, right? So I want to talk about what his relationship, or really, I guess how him and Anthony Richardson, where that meets, right? So I saw a stat. It's going around a little bit on the social medias right now.
Yeah.
And oh man, who brought it up? Was it Chris Sims? That fucking guy.
Yeah.
I saw a stat that Jalen Hurts only threw the check down. Is this correct? 3.4% of the time. Is that true? Number one, that's true.
Yeah. I think that's like an accurate stat for the most part. He didn't take the check down a lot.
Okay. Do you feel like that was something that was by design, or do you feel like that was like just individually on Hurts' end? Or something else entirely?
I don't know. To me, I hate stats like this because you know what I mean. Like it seems like a dumb stat where it's like, oh, this is bad quarterback play. He's not taking the check down, not taking what the defense gives him.
Right.
What they don't account for though is that half the time, Jalen Hurts may not take the check down, but he's taking off and running with it for a 10-yard gain or something.
That's a great point.
You know what I'm saying? So like, while it's not a check down, he's still gaining yards on these plays. You know what I'm saying? So like,
yeah,
while our offense wasn't necessarily designed to have a check down, our check down was like Jalen Hurts running the ball or Miles Sanders taking the handoff or taking a sweep or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So I don't like the stat at all. And as far as what Shane Steichen will do with your offense, I think if Minshew's the starter, you're going to see more checkdowns. You're going to see a lot more screens underneath, like with Kyle Granson or Jelani Woods, tight end screens that we ran a lot in Philly. You'll probably see a lot more of that in Indianapolis. And quite frankly, a lot of the stuff we did in terms of not taking the check down and pushing the ball down the field is a credit to our offensive line, which in my opinion is like top 1 or 2 in football. So, and it's no disrespect to Indianapolis or any other team, but going from the Philadelphia offensive line to a different offensive line like Indianapolis, who has quality players, it's just not the same. So schematically, you're going to maybe see a lot more of those, like you said, 3.4% of the time checkdowns that, Jalen Hurts took. That may be up a little bit more for Gardner Minshew or even Anthony Richardson. But again, overall, I hate that stat. Not a big fan of it.
So, Asif, let me tell you, I appreciate the apology.
Yeah.
But do not feel the need to apologize.
Yeah, fair enough.
We were 4-12-1, and you guys were 3 points away. Really, if I remember the game, wasn't there some sort of call or something? Funny how that type of thing in the moment feels so important, and then you think back and you're like, I don't even remember what screwed the Eagles. Did the Eagles get screwed somehow, Asif?
I'm not in the.
Wasn't there a call at the end?
It was a pass interference. I did not like the call because they were doing that all game. And to call it in that spot, I thought was, a little BS. But it was a PI. It was a holding. James, Juju Smith-Schuster had a chair out, and he did get pulled. I did not like the call because earlier in the game, same route, he got pulled the same way, and they did not throw the flag. And same thing happened in the first quarter. Same thing happened in the second quarter. Be consistent with your calls, all I'm saying. So I'm not going to make excuses for that. That's not the reason we lost the game. We let up 38 points in the damn game. You're not going to win games by putting up, letting the offense score 38 points in a game. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, it's still a gut punch. It's still, my nuts are still numb from it because, that's what it feels like. It feels like somebody with me just kneed me in the nuts, and it's still there. Like I still have no feeling down there because of it.
Tough time.
Dude, you saw me. I was distraught for a week. I didn't answer your call. I didn't answer anybody's text for like a week. I was like, I was in a bad way. Lie. Yeah, no, I was in a bad way. But
let me try to take your mind off of it.
Yeah, please do.
So I think what is so cool about Shane Steichen kind of, just this transition here is that you could look at Jalen Hurts and Anthony Richardson. The parallels are there, right? Yeah. I mean, these guys fit a similar profile in terms of being these big, strong runners, right? These great athletes. But that has some concern maybe about or at least have, right? And Jalen Hurts really no more. But going into last season, easy to forget now that there was concerns about his arm. Now, albeit those are for different reasons than Anthony Richardson, but the questions about Richardson's accuracy, so on and so forth. And I expect that to be an issue at times, right? So you talked about scripted plays earlier before, kind of these things to get the momentum going, right?
Yeah.
What did you see Shane Steichen doing to help Jalen Hurts out? Because, I mean, as good as Jalen Hurts was, no one's accusing him of being like Peyton Manning in terms of
course not.
Right? So, obviously, he was getting help from the head coach here. So, what was some of the stuff that you saw Steichen doing to maybe get him in rhythm or get him in comfort when maybe things weren't going his way or just to start off a game and get him out of the pocket, right? RPO, what are we looking at here?
Again, you kind of touched on it a little bit. The RPO game was really important for us in Philadelphia because, like I said, that one design play is like 6 or 7 plays later in the game. It could be, a pass to the left, right. It could be a tight end screen off that. It could be a rollout. It could be a handoff. It could be a zone play inside. It can go to the outside. So there's like 5 or 6 different things you could just do from one action based on what the defense is telling you. So that was one way that we got the game, like Jalen Hurts' rhythm going. Another thing was the use of the tight end. And in Indianapolis, you have nothing but tight ends.
Right.
Tight ends galore, essentially. You got, Kyle Granson, Jelani Woods, you got Mo Ali Cox over there, all guys who can really, I'm not going to say they're
Right.
elite tight ends, but they're really good tight ends. Like they can play. Shane Steichen's really good at using the tight end to get the offense going a bit. Now, it's a little bit different because Dallas Goedert is in that in between like Travis Kelce and George Kittle in terms of run after the catch, being able to make guys miss in the open field for a big guy. While I'm not going to accuse anybody in Indianapolis being that guy, but the concept
Jelani.
Yeah, well, we're about to find out with those guys, right? Like you're going to find out a lot about your tight ends this
I think they're both
season.
good. I think
they're
Jelani
good
and Kylan
too.
Grant's for different reasons, man. Jelani's just like explosive. There's very few players that you watch on a given day that can touch the ball 2 times and you remember the 2 plays. Like he is a pop off the screen type of guy.
He's dynamic. He's got the potential to be really dynamic for sure.
Granson is all of 6'2", I think, at tight end. And man, he's open and he plays bigger than he is. And he's just a fundamentals guy, really. So this is a good combo. One of the questions I was going to ask you was that with Dallas Goedert coming on last year, what you're saying is that was a concerted effort. That was not by circumstance or game flow. You're saying Steichen's going for that.
That's how a lot of our drives in Philadelphia got going. Like if you notice,
interesting note. Fantasy football players,
absolutely.
Colts fans maybe drafting one of these guys. Yeah,
I'm telling you, if he's on the board late in the draft, take a flyer on them because you're never gonna know. But Shane Steichen, he's good at really dialing up these plays because it's so easy to get a tight end in the open field with offensive linemen in front of them. You know what I'm saying? You're already in the second level at that point once you have a tight end down the field, right? So a lot of our drives began with a few running plays in the RPO and then a tight end screen that would just blow it up. And then all of a sudden the floodgates started to open and then everything else started opening up with, Devontae Smith and AJ Brown underneath. And then all of a sudden you got vertical shots going down the field and then there's no way to really stop the Philadelphia Eagles offense. Right. So,
right. And question for you, because you're a, you're like kind of like a film guy. I don't know how to put it, but you're kind of like into the concepts and things like that in terms of the way they're piecing routes together and stuff like that, right? So you're talking a lot about RPOs and screens and getting the tight ends going. And then only briefly did you touch on freaks like Devonta Smith and AJ Brown, who I saw get the ball down the field plenty of times. Now, obviously in an RPO, because of the way the blocking is, you can't just take shots down the field per se, vertical go on the RPO just because of the rules, really, right? Yeah. So you feel like the way they were setting up the vertical game, do you think that was heavily assisted by the fact that it was AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, or you just feel like, I guess what I'm asking is how are they setting up the vertical game over there in Philly? Is there like certain concept they're going to? Are they just letting those 2 guys win their matchup? Or is it like...
Yeah, well, it's interesting you asked that just because now that I'm looking back on it, I'm trying to think of every time where we're like, okay, we're going to go for a vertical shot here. I can't think of. There's only a few plays that I could maybe think of. Against Tennessee, we had a few vertical shots where AJ Brown kind of mossed somebody. In Pittsburgh, we did that a couple of times, and then in the NFC Championship game, we did that a couple of times. Right. In terms of just dialing up a vertical shot, we don't do it that often, like you said, because of the RPO. But what ends up happening is, like I said earlier, Shane Steichen, when calling plays, is playing chess, not checkers. He's setting up something that defense has to adjust to. If you're going to keep crashing down on the run, there's only one thing that's happening on the back end, and it's one-on-one coverage because you're not bringing a safety down unless you're playing the run. You're just not going to do it. And with the tight end screen along with that, you have to bring your safety down. You have to bring an extra linebacker down, or you have to bring your slot corner in to cover that. All of a sudden, you got one-on-one on the outside, and that's when the vertical shots start to happen. So you know what I'm saying? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The vertical shots start to happen, right? And then
I'm a child.
Yeah, exactly. It's all good, man. If I make that mistake, you got to call me out. It's all good. But like you said, and it also helps when you have Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, who's gonna win one-on-one matchups majority of the time, right? And with your team, Michael Pittman, Ashton, what's his name? Alec Pierce, excuse me. I'm thinking Ashton Doolin in my head, but he's not. Really
he's still
good.
There.
Yeah, he's there. He's just not that. He's not going to be on the outside.
You know your Colts shit, Austin. Don't sell yourself short.
Hey, listen. I watched the Colts cast, my friend. I learned a lot from the Colts. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I learned from you. So
right.
But again, it's all set up on the RPO and how it dictates what the defense does. However the defense moves, the quarterback, it's gonna be so obvious for the QB to see it, where it's like, oh snap, you got one safety up top, and I got Michael Pittman on the outside, one-on-one. I'm gonna take that shot, and I'm gonna win that battle most of the time if I put it in the right spot for him. Because Michael Pittman's a freak, and he gets better every single year. You know what I mean? Like, don't get it twisted. Michael Pittman's a dog. You know what I'm saying? Like he is underrated. He's underappreciated as a receiver.
He's underappreciated by the Colts fan base,
which is ridiculous, by the way. Love Michael Pittman. Love Michael Pittman. He's big time.
No one calls him. I don't know. Sometimes I say this, and I see Michael Pittman hate in comments everywhere, dude. When the gambling thing came out, everyone was just like, "Oh, it must have been Michael Pittman." It's like, what the hell? You know what I'm saying? What are we doing here with that? And then I come out and I say, yo, a lot of people hate on Michael Pittman. And then you have people that are like, who hates on Michael Pittman? It's like, well, maybe I'm just too deep in the weeds here sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of Pittman hate. I'm glad to see you call him a freak. The guy had nearly 100 catches last year. And 4 drops on the season. And people are making it like,
yeah, I know. No, he's an absolute monster. And again, if you can get your tight ends involved in the action and your quarterback makes good decisions and not just put the ball in harm's way, you're going to get a lot of one-on-one matchups, and the vertical game is going to be there for you guys. So whoever your quarterback is, as long as they make the right decisions, you're going to have plenty of opportunities to make big-time plays.
There's no questions that our guy's going to be able to get it down the field if it's Anthony Richardson. There's no questions about
that. Even with Minshew, bro. Even with Minshew.
I think
it's easy to throw one-on-one to Michael Pittman if I just got to throw it up 30 yards.
Dope.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he's good. He's good.
When's the last time as a Colts fan you're happy to see the backup if need be, right? We have Peyton Manning. Listen, we all love Jim Sorgi, but one of the best parts about Jim Sorgi is that he never played. Right? Exactly. So that was like one of my favorite parts about the guy.
Yeah.
And then obviously, we end up with Curtis Painter. That's not great, right? Andrew Luck, you get the Scott Tolzie's of the world. Jacoby Brissett. Okay, I've answered my own question. The last time I've enjoyed, but even then, how do you enjoy seeing Jacoby Brissett?
I hear you on that.
You're out here, dude, like, listen, like, don't get me wrong. A ribeye is a fine steak, right? There's no problem with a ribeye.
Right.
But we had a filet mignon sitting over there with the with the shoulder. You know what I'm saying? Right?
Yeah,
we're out here driving the Honda. It's efficient. But we had a fucking Ferrari sitting in the fucking garage that, we couldn't get the brakes changed on. And needless to say, that car's out of commission, right? So, one more question I want to ask you, and I don't know if you're going to have like a concise answer to this. I'm not sure if it's possible to have a concise answer to this, but I'm looking for something here. Because one of the big Shane Steichen, big quote he said, and this is like all over Colts. Are there T-shirts out there? Maybe there are. When they asked Shane Steichen like kind of how he wants to run the offense, he said that they want to throw to score and run to win. And that sounds great, right? It sounds great. But like, you could also run the score, right? And throw to win, whatever it is, right? I mean, you can't just do that for what does that mean? Right. So as an Eagles fan, you've watched him for 2 years. When you hear that throw to score, or run to win, which has essentially become just one of the favorite things amongst Colts fans right now, what does that mean to you hearing that? I'm not sure if he ever said that in Philly.
I don't know if he said that direct quote in Philly, but I'll tell you, early on in Philadelphia's season last year, it was ironically one of the knocks on why people didn't believe in Philadelphia at first. They'd always say like, oh, Philadelphia is just a first half team. They have this explosion in the first half, and then all of a sudden their offense starts to slow down and not score as many points in the second half. And quite frankly, I think it's because of this philosophy itself right here. You guys have a defense that is really, really good. You have the ability to control the clock with John Taylor, with Zach Moss, Deion Jackson. If you guys just put up points and control the clock from there on out, you can win a lot of football games. And that's what he means by throw to score, run the win. Get the big lead, make the offense on the other side one-dimensional, because on our end, we led the league in sacks with 70 because we have nothing but pass rushers on the defensive line. We get like 2 or 3 scores up, and then all of a sudden, you're not running the ball anymore. You're not going to do it when you're down 20-0. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have to throw to keep up with the scoring. And at that point, you become one-dimensional. And in everybody's NFL, if you're one-dimensional, you got a big problem. So
my heart just dropped, by the way.
Yeah.
And I was considering whether or not I was going to address this, but you've just brought something to the forefront.
Yeah.
So I forgot that was an issue in Philly last year, offensively. Right. And part of my goal, by the way, Asif, and I didn't tell you this prior, part of my goal in these questions was, it's not that I wanted to be negative about Steichen, but I was kind of looking for like a chink in the armor because he's pretty like squeaky clean for like Colts.
Yeah,
fans
no.
you know?
When something's too good to be true, it usually is, right?
Right. So when you say something like that, the problem is that this is a Colts team that over the past 2 seasons, I have no numbers about this, but just as a fan watching, has horrifically blown so many leads in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
That is the type of fucking thing you just said right there. That is actually, I don't know if I'm emotional and just overreact. I'm going to have to sit on this one because now I don't know if that's a talking point. But I'm serious because that sucks. Because I remember last year, this is before I had the Colts cast. You'll remember this. I know you'll remember this.
Yes.
I was very excited about Matt Ryan. Carson Wentz, I was not excited about from the start. You know this. Another way the Colts and the Eagles are intertwined. I was never excited. I rooted for him, but deep down, you knew how I felt.
Yes.
And Matt Ryan, I was legitimately, like, not fake, like really, really excited about. The one thing I did say about Matt Ryan, I said, how ironic that in a season we just blew 1 million leads, we literally get the cover boy for blowing leads in Mr. 28-3, and then we go ahead and blow 33-0 against the Minnesota Vikings. And I'm sitting there thinking, with the disaster of this season, I just throughout the course of the season, I thought about that one concern I had in the like the preseason offseason before the season.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just think about it sometimes, and I would just be like, damn, I kind of knew.
Right.
And and now, fuck, you just put me in the same pickle.
Well,
Colts Nation,
it wasn't
I am
meant
sorry.
to be
This
that
was
way.
not my this was
wasn't
not
meant
my
to be
intention.
that way. But
Oh,
honestly,
I feel like I've ended this episode bad.
No. Listen, guy. I'm telling you. We got to the Super Bowl.
I'm concerned.
We got to the Super Bowl last year based on this exact concept. We called plays the exact same way every single game.
That is true.
With this style. We put up big points early, and then all of a sudden, your second half offense has to become one-dimensional on the opposing team. And if that's the case, can you imagine if the Colts defense knew, okay, every down this team is going to have to throw the ball? You don't tell me you don't trust your Colts defense against someone who's going to have to throw it every single time for a half? It's a good defense, you guys. You know,
we're going to have to figure out what's going on in the secondary.
Fair enough. But my point being is, as a play caller on the defensive side of the ball and just as players in general, if you know, okay, I don't even have to worry about this offense trying to run the ball between the tackles and I could just go after the quarterback, that's a hell of a lot easier to cover than having the mix of both run and pass back and forth where you have to control your defensive line and you have to make sure your linebackers are honest and making sure they're not just going back out there and playing coverage, right? So I think that's the philosophy that Shane Steichen wants to have. He wants to be aggressive. He's trying to get you guys to score points and get the offense flowing and churning a bit so that your defense has an easier time to just play, you know what? Let's just shut down this passing game because they're not going to be able to catch up with us in terms of scoring, right? That's the philosophy that he brought to Philadelphia. And I believe full-heartedly he's trying to bring that to Indianapolis and hopefully with Anthony Richardson in the near future for you guys because you guys got something good over there with AR4.
That's AR5 to you. But
5. I'm so sorry, guys. My apologies. I'm thinking 14, and I'm like, I know he's not wearing 14, but all right. There you go. That's why I'm an Eagles fan, by the way. This is why.
Right. In fairness, before when I said you knew your shit about the Colts, you said it's because you watched the Colts cast. I never call him AR5, so that's probably why you weren't. It never happens.
There you go.
He said he didn't like AR-15. So then I just assumed I'm just calling him Anthony Richardson right now.
Fair enough.
I'll wait for him to
That's respectable.
I'll wait for him to tell me what to do. I'm taking instructions. So it's all hail Mr. Richardson, right? That's where we're at right now. So
as you should be in Indyland.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think that's about everything we got for today. Asif, thank you so much for being here. You on the other end, I hope that you learned something about Shane Steichen. I'll probably take this conversation that we had, Asif. This is probably going to drive some talking points for me moving forward because now
absolutely,
I feel like I have a little bit more to go off of. I already have some ideas flowing in my brain right now about some stuff I could talk about from this conversation. So I appreciate you. That's that. So if you made it this far, you couldn't have hated it. This is my longest episode to date, I believe, if not for my original Chris Ballard defense, but I think this is longer. So if you made it this far, hell, you must like the show. That means bloop, you push that like button, right? This is about that time. If you made it this far and you don't push the like button, not that I don't appreciate you being here, but why, right? And yeah. And from there, you can subscribe as well for the same reasons that I just laid out. Yeah, I think that would be it. Oh, yeah, you could share it with a friend if you like, right? I always say that one, Asif. I don't think anyone's ever shared it with a friend, and I don't blame them.
I don't blame you either. It's okay.
Yeah, no, I don't blame them either. But also, like, if you did, not bad. So, right? So, yeah, that's pretty much it. We're rambling, dude. Man, it feels cool to be on an episode with you, bro.
Thank you for the opportunity, man. It's so good to actually talk to you again via the camera. It's really always a fun time. I always have a genuine time here with my buddy Justin. It's been a long time since I've done this with you. I'm glad we were able to do it again, man. It's a good time.
Yes, sir. So until next time, I am Justin. Of course, across the screen is Asif. Maybe you'll see him again at some point in the future here on the Colts cast. And that was the Ride in the Bench Colts cast. So go Colts!